Welcome back to the 12 Rants of Christmas. I'm Jer Leggett, sporting, since we're doing a sports team show, I'm wearing a Philadelphia Eagles themed Christmas jumper. I don't know why it sometimes makes me disappear. I think it works kind of like an invisibility cloak on Harry Potter for anyone watching the video there. And today, on one of the biggest sporting days in the calendar, I want to talk about football and some of the recent changes to the game, aka the recent excuses for football fans to moan their fucking heads off. Let's face it, we football fans love a good fucking whinge. Don't believe me? Here's an old letter sent to a totally real but now defunct newspaper, the Daily Shakespeare, in 1863 when the Football Association published official rules for the sport for the first time and took it away from being 200 men kicking the still bloody bladder of a recently dead pig throughout the town after 15 pints of ale. The letter reads, "The Gameth is Goneth," says Joffrey, who I imagine just holding a skull here like he's in Hamlet. "How can I be expected to enjoy this sport without the blood of a pig staining the socks of participants? And this new offside rule will lay waste to the promising careers of the likes of Jimmy Hatcher Beergut. It's a disgrace. This football thing will never catch on." Except, in spite of the initial reservations of Joffrey, it did catch on. In fact, it became probably the most popular thing in the history of ever. Seriously, football is one of the few things that bonds nearly everyone on the planet. If you pay even a polite, respectful amount of attention to who Shamrock Rovers are playing in the Conference League this season, you can probably bond with like 90% of the people you come across in some fashion. If you get into a taxi, for example, with a Latvian driver, you can just go, "Hey, Skonto Riga!" And even if he fucking hates Skonto Riga, even if they are his team's number one rivals, that small bit of acknowledgement of his culture makes you automatically best friends. But like anything that kind of achieves that level of popularity, for decades now, football has faced people claiming that it's dying, despite, by any metric, only growing in popularity. Seriously, if you don't believe me, consider this. Americans watch Serie A now and have the best Champions League coverage on the planet. Your hot take war is already lost, my friend. But whether it's the back pass rule being introduced in 1992, water breaks for players during COVID, allowing additional substitutions, getting rid of away goals, or rules to prevent against handball, no matter what the rule, you will always find people claiming that this has destroyed their ability to enjoy the sport. And in fact, in researching it, the only real rule I can remember being reversed in recent history because everyone hated it was the golden goal extra time rule of first goal in extra time wins. And even then, it wasn't so much that we hated it as a rule, it was more because Liverpool won a UEFA Cup because of it, so any rule that leads to Liverpool fans being annoying needs to immediately be addressed, and I fully stand behind that. The current bugbears that are ruining football for people are pretty easy to identify. Have a conversation about football with anyone for like 10-15 minutes and these are probably going to come up because people have strong opinions on them. They are VAR and the new Champions League format. So today, let's look at if these actually are ruining the sport or if it's just the latest historical wind-up that will actually be grand with when the next rule change becomes the thing to ruin football. Let's start with VAR, aka I can't believe the most televised sport on the planet is using technology and video to get decisions right. What's wrong with the world? We all know VAR isn't perfect, and there have been some high-profile decisions that either have or haven't been made using it. So it's basically the same as it was beforehand, except for the decisions where it did get it right and actually helped. When it was introduced, the concern that most people had was, "Oh, this is going to take forever. You get the hours of our lives wasted. Every match is going to be like 74 hours, like watching American football." And that just hasn't happened. Yes, the average length of football matches is increasing slightly. The Premier League released data earlier this year that shows that since VAR has been introduced, the average match time has increased by a whopping 5%. That's literally 5 minutes of your life per game. Basically, the equivalent of a medium to long poo. In addition to this, instead of entire lifetimes in 5 minute increments, remember, being wasted to rule out perfectly valid goals, instead the amount of goals per game given has increased by nearly half a goal per game. And look, I'm not trying to be a cook for the Premier League here. I'm not even a huge advocate of VAR. I'm just very much practically in favour of, if the technology exists, if it doesn't cause much harm and it allows more decisions to be more accurate more often than not without much inconvenience, why wouldn't you use it? And as anyone who actually has followed the sport, like the NFL or NBA, where using video technology has been standard for years, knows there is something cool to getting to celebrate something happening twice. First off when it happens, and then when it gets confirmed, or immediately turning ecstasy into agony. You have the exhilaration of a goal going in, and then the uncertainty and nerves of a VAR check, and then you either get to celebrate once again once it's confirmed, or if it's your team who conceded and it's overturned, you get to laugh at the other team when it's struck off. Literally, the only inconvenience VAR has caused me is when I've only been half paying attention to matches and I've looked away after a goal, missed the VAR check, and then been mildly confused for a second when the score wasn't what I was expecting. But then I just thought about it for a second. I'm like, oh, VAR struck it off. I wasn't paying attention. But is my poor attention span really worth us impeding technological progress? Is that not as a society, going back to using landlines because you lost your mobile phone once? Football fans who can't deal with technological advances tend to harken back to the old ways through rose-tinted glasses, like there was some utopian perfect era of football where we were all happy and satisfied. And they mustn't have been watching the same episodes of Match of the Day as I was, where 90% of the analysis every show was about, was this offside or not? Or should that have been a red card? I.e., the literal exact reasons we were crying out for some kind of video intervention when it seemed stupid that this was possible, but we didn't use it like other sports did. What exactly do we miss about that? Do we sneakily get a kick out of the victims complex that we could carry by being able to put a face to our grievance and say, oh, it was that ref's fault. They cost us. My team wasn't shite. It's the ref's fault. And for the record, by the way, we very much still do that, to the point that the PGMOL has been pressured into releasing conversations that happen now for major VAR decisions, so we can somehow, as untrained punters who work in fucking IT or banking, declare ourselves the arbiters of what constitutes quality conversations that goes into making vital sporting decisions. But really, it's just an excuse to be a bit abusive towards randoms out of frustration, isn't it? That's what we're really looking for out of it, isn't it? Well, football fans tend to forget also, when a VAR decision costs them something major, is that the option is always there for your team to just be much better than the other team, win 5-0, and not need to rely on a crucial video decision to make or break their entire season. Are you upset that your VAR got your centre back sent off? Well, he could have just not let his hands get anywhere near the ball or tackled correctly. And that's, I think, what's really at the core of our grievances with VAR. Do you really think football as a concept is dead because of this? Or did your team just lose and you take this a bit too seriously, so you feel the need to try and save face and not admit defeat to your friends by blaming a fucking video? Frankly, Nigel, I think you'll be back here next week doing this all over again, or in fact a decade from now, still moaning and secretly loving every fucking second of it, because this is the toxic way you've decided that football fits into your life balance. But at least VAR has the capacity to somewhat inconvenience us. It may indirectly be the reason that our team loses, or we're missing a player for a crucial match because of a decision it made. What I find even more confusing and funnier, really, if I'm being honest, is when fans get really aggrieved because of a change of a format of a tournament, which we can specifically see played out right now in the new look Champions League. Similar to VAR, I'm not saying that I was always a massive proponent of this. The move to 36 teams playing in one league via an 8-game schedule wasn't my idea of a good time on paper, and like everyone else, when I first heard it, it confused the fuck out of me. But now that we're actually 3/4 of the way through the group stage, I've gotta say, like, I'm not gonna be quick to give UEFA credit for the sake of it, but this kind of works. There are people out there though who decided at the start of this all they wanted to die on this hill, and they're continuing to stay stubborn in the face of all their reservations turning to shit. Here's some of the things that they said and are still saying. They said it's just more games for the sake of it. The best teams are still going to qualify. That's a big one that people say. And first off, are you forgetting this? The best teams should win competitions. That's literally the purpose of playing a competition, so the best team wins. You can wax lyrical about Greece winning Euro 2004, but you're not going to convince me that after coming second in their group after a final match loss to the team who finished fourth in Russia, then frustrating bigger teams in 3 consecutive boring 1-0 wins, you're not going to convince me that represents the magic of football and everything a tournament should be. Nobody wants a world where Real Madrid and Man City buy their way to winning every trophy, and that's true. But I don't know if the format is the battle to make that particular point. It feels more like financial inequality or the likes. Well, actually, come to think of it, I'm going to instantly contradict myself. I do know that the format isn't the way to make that argument, because with 2 games to go, Real Madrid are currently 20th in the table, and the loser of Man City versus PSG looks like they mightn't even make the playoff phase for those who finish between 9th and 24th in the table. Meanwhile, Stade Brest and Lille sit in the automatic qualifying top 8 spots ahead of other traditional European giants like Bayern Munich, Milan, Juventus, both of last season's Champions League finalists and the Europa Cup winners. So if you want a competition format that increases parity between the big teams and the underdogs, that is literally what this tournament has delivered you. Another common complaint is, more matches are going to cause more injuries. Yes, because injuries ruin sports. Never mind the fact that elite millionaire sports stars will find a way to emotionally cope with tearing their hamstring, but if you think injuries of the top players ruin football, ask yourselves this. Would you rather Rodri was fit and City were cruising on their way to their 5th Premier League title in a row at a canter, or has that injury actually made it a bit interesting? Others say, the old group stage was easier to understand. Like VAR being a result of fans moaning about incorrect refereeing decisions, this seems to be a case of fans just forgetting what their last grievance was in favour of the new and shinier grievance. Do you forget how fucking boring, mundane and pointless the old group stage was in the Champions League, or at least became in recent years? The draw and the fact that it was seeded literally made it so there would be 2 underdogs mixed with 2 good teams who'd almost always qualify, even if there happened to be an upset somewhere along the way, because by the time that upset happened, they'd have either already qualified or they'd have a rematch to play the team that upset them again and undo the good of that. Don't believe me? I followed the Women's Champions League, where they still use the same format except it's 4 groups of 4 and they play each other twice. And even if you'd never watched a women's football match in your life and just guessed who qualified based off the names of the teams, you'd still probably pick everyone who qualified from each group 100%. And the competition, interestingly, has made the decision to turn to the 36-team format next season. The reality is that while VAR may be a bit of a debate from an entertainment standpoint, like it or not, it is now becoming unquestionable that the new Champions League format is just better and answers all of the complaints that we had in the past. But instead of seeing that, all that it has inspired are new complaints. Which speaks to kind of my main point that I'm getting at here. That maybe part of what football fans actually want is just having something to complain about. If your team has a goal incorrectly ruled out for offside, you want video evidence introduced to eliminate the possibility of that ever happening again. But if your team concedes a goal because the video shows they were actually onside all along, you think the video was bullshit and the old way was much better. If there's a 32-team Champions League with 8 groups of 4, it's boring, too predictable, and the big teams always win. If they change the format so the big teams are less certain of their spots, there's more games and less predictability, then it's too long, there's no point, and people are going to get injured. You'd say it's a case of toxic fandom, but toxic is only toxic if it's a problem after all. The thing with this fandom is it kind of works and makes the sport more popular. Like, maybe we just enjoy complaining. Maybe that's what we actually, at the core of it all, need football for, as a source of stress relief and butter to pour our negative energy into so that it distracts us from the really stressful, annoying, but important things that are happening in our lives. Is football basically a billion-dollar industry built off the same thing that appeals to us about using rage rooms where we smash household items just so we fucking feel something? Because for all the complaints we have, for the millions who say the game is gone, it's only getting more popular. Maybe we just need to acknowledge that we're all just sick fucks and we just want something to shake our fists at because we enjoy shaking our fists at it, and then have a video referee admonish us because they didn't see the fist shaking at first glance and had to check it on the video. That's been the 12 Rants of Christmas for today, guys. I'm Jer Leggett, and I'm going to be back tomorrow to discuss the world of dating and my 2024 list of left swipes and red flags. I'm never going to use that sound again, guys, I promise.